few months ago, we did an in-depth triple comparison featuring 3 heavyweights in the OLED TV world: the LG G4, Sony A95L, and Samsung S95D. We meticulously covered every aspect you could think of. But when the dust settled, we found ourselves somewhat divided. Which one came out on top? Well, that was a tougher question to answer than we initially thought. The truth is, each of these OLED titans has its own set of strengths, making it hard to crown a definitive winner. But let's shake things up a bit. What happens if we remove the Samsung S95D from the conversation entirely? Will the absence of the S95D bring us to a more conclusive result? Or will we still find ourselves entangled in all the intricate details? Hi, I'm Abby from Ratings.com, and I'm about to embark on this journey once again. Yes, I know I'll probably get stuck in the bushes of TV indecision again, because both of these OLEDs shine in different areas. From a quick glance, they look very similar, although not identical, of course. If you've opted for the 55 or 65-inch version of the LG G4, you'll be glad to know that it comes with a stand right out of the box. The Sony A95L, on the other hand, features adjustable feet that can adapt to different placements or furniture setups, which could be a nice touch depending on your room. However, if you decide to go big with the larger G4 models, you'll get LG's slim wall mount instead of a traditional stand. And once mounted, both of these TVs sit completely flat against the wall, so they both have that seamless, sleek look from the back. But appearances aside, the real question is, how do these two TVs perform? Let's dive into that. When it comes to HDR brightness, both of these TVs take full advantage of OLED technology to deliver perfect inky blacks, the ones we're always raving about. These deep blacks appear even when positioned next to bright highlights. Both the A95L and G4 sit at the top of the OLED market, and they both push the limits when it comes to peak HDR brightness. These are some of the brightest OLEDs you'll find. While the G4 is capable of reaching slightly higher peak brightness, the A95L excels when it comes to how it handles real-world content. Ultimately, both TVs look similar, and you'd be hard-pressed to tell which one is the brightest in most content. Although, if you look closely enough, the G4 typically has a very slight edge. Where the two TVs really start to differentiate themselves is in their color performance, specifically when it comes to the brightness and vibrancy of colors. The Sony A95L just pops. The A95L features a wider color gamut than the G4 and experiences fewer issues with color mapping. Both TVs display most of the DCI-P3 color space, which is great for most modern content, but the A95L takes it a step further by covering more of the wider Rec 2020 color space. This is largely thanks to the impressive color range of the A95L, which uses a QD OLED panel that consistently outperforms LG's WOLED technology when it comes to overall color reproduction. So while the G4 truly excels at portraying the brightest whites, the A95L wins in just about every other color category. What does this mean in practical terms? Well, the G4 may sometimes appear to be the brighter TV when you're looking at high brightness scenes, but if you take a closer look, the Sony A95L's colors will stand out more. They'll just look richer, more saturated, almost as if they're jumping out of the screen. The G4 still delivers beautiful colors, but compared to the A95L, it feels slightly less vibrant. By now, you might be thinking, wow, the A95L seems to do everything better. Well there, not so fast. When it comes to gaming, the G4 pulls ahead in a few key areas. Let's revisit HDR brightness, but this time in game mode. Here, the A95L takes a noticeable hit in brightness, losing a significant amount when you switch to game mode. In contrast, the G4 barely loses any brightness at all. For gamers looking for a bright, vibrant experience, there's no doubt that the G4 is the one to beat. Now let's talk about inputs, a big factor for gamers. Unfortunately, Sony still only includes 2 HDMI 2.1 ports on the A95L, which is pretty limiting for such a high-end TV, especially for gamers who have multiple devices. Even worse, those ports are limited to 4K at 120 Hz. That's not exactly future-proof for some of the most demanding games and systems. And those of you with a high-end PC will feel constrained by a measly 120 Hz refresh rate. On the flip side, the G4 is far more generous. It boasts 4 full HDMI 2.1 ports, each supporting 4K at 144 Hz. There's really no comparison here. For gamers, the G4 wins hands down in this category. And speaking of inputs, let's discuss input lag. The Sony A95L does have a higher input lag than the G4, but it's debatable whether most gamers will actually notice it. PC gamers in particular might notice the difference at 4K at 144 Hz, where the G4's input lag is about half of that of the A95L's at 4K at 120 Hz. If you're a hardcore gamer, you'll want the G4, but for casual gamers, the A95L is still more than fast enough. Alright, Sony fans, here's where your beloved A95L pulls ahead once again. Image processing. This is Sony's strong suit, and it shows. When it comes to HDR Native Gradient handling, the A95L really flexes its muscles. QD OLED panels excel in this area, and the A95L is no exception. You might see some very minor banding in shades of gray, but in any other colors, it's virtually impossible to notice. The G4 does a great job too, but if you look closely, you'll spot more banding, particularly in darker grays. This subtle difference enhances the A95L's ability to reproduce colors more accurately in real-world content. Next, let's talk about upscaling. Here, the A95L really takes the crown. When it comes to upscaling low-resolution content, the A95L is in a league of its own. You'll still know you're watching lower-res content, but it'll look sharper and clearer on the A95L than on any other TV in this class. The G4 holds its own, but fine details are definitely more prominent on the A95L. Now, not everything is perfect for the Sony. The LG does a better job when it comes to reducing macro blocking and low bitrate content. It's better at cleaning up that pixelation we all hate in compressed videos. This does come at a cost, though. While the G4 smooths out the content more, the A95L preserves more detail overall. So while the G4 might give you a cleaner image, the A95L still holds onto more sharpness in low-quality content. For our money, the G4 offers the better-looking image overall. So, after all that, which TV should you buy? Alright, bear with us. There's definitely a clear divide in terms of strengths. Ultimately, it comes down to how you plan to use your TV. Sure, both TVs support Dolby Vision and pass through advanced DTS audio formats, so no edge there. But for gamers, the G4 is the obvious choice. It offers more HDMI 2.1 ports with better support for 4K at 144 Hz, lower input lag, and it stays brighter in game mode than the Sony A95L. So if you're looking for the best gaming experience, the G4 has your name written all over it, as it's not only more responsive when gaming, it even looks better. Hard to argue against that. On the other hand, if your priority is getting the best picture quality possible, and you don't care much about gaming, the Sony A95L is the better option. It offers more vibrant colors, excellent image processing, and an overall richer visual experience. It's also basically just as bright as the LG. Again, not in game mode, but with a more refined approach to color and detail. Now let's talk price. The Sony is typically a bit more expensive than the LG, often by a few $100s. That's not a small difference, but in the world of premium OLEDs, both TVs are already pretty expensive. So if you're looking to save a little cash and still get an incredible TV, the G4 is a great option. But for those of you who want the best of the best when it comes to picture quality, it might be worth ponying up the extra cash for the A95L. In the end, it's a classic case of gamers versus cinephiles. Pick your side and commit to the bid. Well, that's all for our comparison between the LG G4 and Sony A95L. If you want to learn more, check out the full reviews on our website or use our comparison tool to look at the TVs side by side. The links are in the description below. Until next time, I'm Abby from Ratings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Whew, we did it.
That was amazing.
Cool. It even looks better. It's hard to argue against that. Hard to argue. It even looks better. Oh, okay. All right, let's calm down now. That's what we do.